Yeah, it's still Happy Valentine's Day. You already know what time it is. We're looking at this movie called The Vow. So we got this married couple by the name of Leo and Paige. They're coming out the movie theaters. They about to get in the car. It's like a little bit of snow on the ground. Then they stop in this little area. All of a sudden, she's taking off her seatbelt. They about to do things in the car. All of a sudden, this big ass truck comes out of nowhere. It can't even control itself. It slides into their car. They end up running into a pole, but because Paige's seatbelt was off, she ends up going straight through the windshield. We're like, oh shit. So she's basically in the hospital with a concussion or whatever. So then we go back 4 years ago. This is around the time when they first meet each other. She was going back to her car. Apparently, she had forgot her permit or whatever like that. And then Leo comes and gives her a permit. That's how they get to talk, and that's how it happens. She's actually working at this art institute, and ironically, that's the place they actually get married at. Now we get back to current time. We found out that she's got some brain hemorrhaging. But the doctor tells she should be fine once she wakes up. But the problem is, once she wakes up, she can't remember anything. Well, not technically. The thing is, she doesn't remember back to 4 years. So she doesn't remember being married or anything having to do with Leo. So basically what the doctor tells them is, you know what I mean, it's going to be easier for her to remember things if it goes back to like, certain things that they used to do, you know what I'm saying, do things that reminds her of her, her past and things of that nature. But the thing is, all of a sudden, her parents end up showing up at the hospital. Nothing wrong with that. Of course, the parents would be concerned, but here's the problem. The parents are trying to take her back to their house, and they basically on the low want her to forget everything about Leo. But she convinces her parents she wants to go back with Leo so they can, reoccur and get things going on in life. So a couple weeks go by, she's finally ready to get back to the house, but obviously Leo's got to drive her there because they don't want her driving nowhere. For obvious reasons, flashbacks and all types of craziness, you know what I mean? So he takes his wife back to the house, and by the time he gets there, it's like this big old surprise party or whatever. It was only supposed to be a couple people in the house, but there was a bunch of people in the house. Everybody's celebrating her being back, but bottom line is she's overwhelmed by all this. So Leo obviously canceled the party early and tell everybody to get out. He apologized to her about all the people being there, but obviously this is not a good start to try to get her memory back. So we find out Leo runs this old school studio, whatever like that, with her homegirl Shelly. Now, as I told you, Paige was at the Art Institute, whatever, but she had this job where she was working as a waitress at this cafe. This cafe is where he pretty much took her on a first date. So it's got like sentimental value and all that. So much sentimental value that in their wedding vows, they actually wrote it on the back of the menus of the cafe spot that they go to. They really like this place. So now he basically just has her in the house, you know what I'm saying, just looking around and stuff, trying to see if she can remember anything. She's trying to get used to being in the place all over again. Now he leaves her keys and her phone, you know what I'm saying, all the numbers that she needs to know, you know what I'm saying, to call him, make sure if anything happens. So basically while she's trying to get her memory back, he's trying to work twice as hard to keep the bills paid and whatnot. But at the same time, he feels like he doesn't want to leave her alone, but that's why he gave her keys and a phone. So while he's doing his studio session stuff, Paige ends up going out to go to this spot to get something to eat, and then she realizes she don't even know how she got there, and she gets lost and she doesn't remember her way back. The thing is, she also forgot her phone. So then she's ended up making a call from inside the cafe. Turns out she doesn't call Leo, she actually calls her mom. So Leo comes back home, he can't find her, now he's spending the whole time trying to look for her. And she basically ends up chilling with the family for a little bit. So it gets to a point she finally gets back to the house and her mom has dressed her up in different clothes. And their parents want to have dinner, so therefore Leo's going to go with Paige to meet the parents again. But apparently Leo's met all of them before, in fact he knows everything about them. So at the dinner table we find out she actually has a sister named Gwen. I can't remember her future husband's name, we just could call him Bucky. So Gwen and Bucky are about to get married soon. So the thing is, her parents, specifically her father, got money. And he's always wanted her to go to law school. But the thing is, she never really finished her classes. Because that's not what she wanted. She wanted to be in the art institute. And her father's very condescending to Leo's dreams and whatnot of, owning a studio. And he's trying to explain stuff to him, but they don't really get it. So basically, if you could read the room, they don't really care for the fact of Leo taking their baby Paige away, you know what I'm saying, to live whatever type of lifestyle they wanted to live. So apparently before all this, Paige had a future fiance by the name of Jeremy. But she had broke it off with him on the day of their wedding. And that's when she wanted to move into the city in the first place. All this happened before Paige and Leo even met. So Paige ends up going back to Leo's house for a little bit. And he's trying to give her like all this evidence for her memory and whatnot. He basically lets her watch videos of their marriage, the wedding and whatnot. They end up getting into a tad bit of an argument, but not really. You can tell Leo's getting frustrated, but at the same time, anybody would. But he's doing his best to keep it together. He's keeping it cool because he really is trying to make sure she can get her memory back. Because obviously if he does anything to push her away, she's going to lean more towards her parents. But she does want to spend time with her sister Gwen. So Leo and Paige go on a double date with Gwen and Bucky. And they go to this random restaurant that seems familiar to her. And they see this girl in the corner by the name of Diane. But Gwen pushes her away from that. She said, don't worry about Diane. Something happened in the past that she doesn't remember or doesn't know about, but they know about. So it was like, what to deal with that? Bring that up later. So anyway, her homegirls that she met that she hasn't seen since high school, they're all, chilling and getting together and whatnot. And then a familiar person pops up out the blue. Turns out it's freaking Jeremy. So now all of a sudden at this point, they're about to have drinks. And she always remembered that she had like a blueberry mojito or whatever. So I know Leo's not trying to get in the way of her remembering things, but I'm pretty sure you don't want somebody who's having amnesia to have fucking drinks in their system. Am I wrong about that? Am I right? I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? But Leo's driving, he's gonna make sure he takes her home. So Leo's getting stuck a little bit. He talks to his homegirl, Shelly, and she gives him the advice, was like, can you find a way to be intimate or something? So I'm thinking to myself, do you really want to push that issue? But here's the situation. When he used to tickle her, it would like, lead to sex or some type of intimacy, right? Because that's a thing they used to do. But he would mostly do something like that when she's having some type of writer's block, when she's stuck on some type of art project that she's trying to finish. Basically to take her mind off it a little bit. So it takes it down to a point where she finally wants to see her studio, right? So she's finally seeing the studio, seeing all the sculptures that she made, but the thing is, she doesn't really remember half the sculptures. She doesn't remember how to use the, equipment and whatnot. And I guess he chose the wrong time to use the tickle maneuver because she's like, hey, what you doing? And he apologizes. He just wants her, to get a memory or whatever like that. But it gets to a point where he's starting to get real frustrated because she can remember all the stuff that's going on with a messed up family and Jeremy, but can't remember what's going on with him. You know what I'm saying? So it gets a little frustrating, you know what I mean? So it gets to a point where she remembers exactly how to get to Jeremy's job. Now, apparently the situation was she actually broke it off with Jeremy. Jeremy's supposed to be messing with some girl named Rosa. He's actually about to tie the knot or get engaged to her or whatever. They get to talking and they end up hugging and then she ends up kissing him. But it's not like he objected to it, you know what I'm saying? He doesn't really come full-fledged and say it, but Jeremy doesn't mind at all if, Paige is attempting to get back with him or anything like that. But you find out halfway through the movie that certain family members are taking advantage of her amnesia. So the family members at one point are having this gathering, and Leo gets a one-on-one with Paige, and he wants to take a different approach. He basically wants to take her out on a date. To kind of rekindle that flame and help out with a memory, you know what I'm saying? So as they're driving, they stop by this little spot. It ends up being a spot in the place where they first met. Then he takes her to their cafe. Then they go to another spot to this river. Now, apparently the thing is, once every month, they end up diving into the water just to go for a swim. But they used to go skinny dipping in the water. But this time, you know what I'm saying, they just have their underwear on. They end up freezing, getting back in the car. He warms her up and everything like that. They end up going back to the studio and start kissing. Then he drops her off back home. Back at her people's house. So at one point, she actually made a collage of all the pictures that she had. A lot of them with a lot of her family members. A select few with Leo. So let's get to the crazy stuff. It's getting to the point where Leo hasn't been able to get with all his acts and whatnot. Because he's basically like an agent for other artists. And since he hasn't been working and trying to take care of Paige, his bills have been past due. They're starting to pile up. Then we find out that her dad reapplies her to law school without her permission or consent. Because it wasn't really one of those things that she was pursuing. But because she doesn't remember how to do her art, her dad's trying to push her forward into this direction. So it gets to the point where they're having this little engagement party for Gwen and Bucky. And Dad gets this one-on-one conversation with Leo. And he basically tells him that she's trying to get his daughter on the right path and all that stuff. Basically telling her to divorce her. I'm like, really? He's like, look, you'll be able to save more money. You know what I'm saying? You'll be able to live on your own. And she could do what she need to do is best for her. I'm just like, wow, dude. Yeah, even if you are potentially looking at her best interest, you're still taking advantage of the fact of her amnesia. It's like, really? He basically calls his dad a coward and walks away from him. And then while he's sitting on the couch, because he doesn't even feel like he even belongs there, here comes Jeremy out the blue. Now, Leo is basically trying to keep himself composed, but Jeremy's talking to gang and shit, and Leo's had enough. He just punched him in his face. And then before he walks out, Paige catches up to him and is like, oh, what's going on? And it's getting to the point where Leo was really starting to believe that Paige won't get her memory back. And Leo's not the type of guy to give up. I think he's starting to cave under the pressure. So what happens after he leaves the party? Paige decides to go ahead and go to law school. Leo ends up signing divorce papers. And then we get this scene where Paige is at the market, and then she ends up seeing Diane there. Remember Diane from earlier? So the reason Gwen didn't want her talking to Diane is because Diane and Paige's dad were having sex. Yeah, they were having affairs. Yeah, he was smashing her for months behind the mom's back. The funny thing is, the mom knew about it too. So the crazy thing is, Gwen knew about it. At this point, Gwen and Bucky had got married. Gwen knew about it. Dad obviously knew about it. The mom knew about it. Hell, even Leo knew about it. So the reason why mom decided to stay with dad is because that's the one mistake he ever did. You know what I'm saying? He's done a lot of greatness, blah, blah, blah. And she basically forgave him. Bitch, you forgave him because he got money. She was like, I never wanted to see the family break apart. When you left, we were sad and everything. But I'm like, fuck all that gaslighting. You was basically manipulating your daughter off the strength of her having amnesia. It's like, really? Wow. And so she basically ends up going to talk to Leo. And she asked if Leo knew. Leo was like, yeah. She's like, why didn't you tell me? And he says, because I didn't want you to have a chance of being with me because of what your parents are doing. It's messed up. I want you to love me for who I am. Basically giving her a choice, which is the opposite of what her family's been doing. So basically it gets to a point later on where she's just sitting on a bench and her father comes up to her and was like, hey, I ain't see you in the library. What's good? And that's when she decides to make her decision to quit law school. But she doesn't really say why she still loves her dad. Because honestly, he doesn't want to cut her off completely. Or she doesn't want to cut her dad off completely. She's thinking to herself, if her mom can accept it, why can't she? So, all right. And she actually decides she wants to move back to the city Then we see Paige going through boxes of stuff or whatever like that. Then we see Leo about to go to this cafe and finds out his clothes or whatever like that. But there's a pamphlet there that says Snow Day on it. And all of a sudden, Paige pops up. Turns out she's been living there for about 6 months now. Yeah, it's like 6 months later. And she basically wants to rekindle her flame with Leo. And they end up going to another spot to have a date on the corner. Some type of Mexican food spot. That's pretty much the end of the movie. Now, apparently this movie was based on real events. And the actual Leo and Paige couple did have 2 kids together and they got together. But the thing is, that part of her memory still never came back. So yeah, it's a wild ass story when you think about it. It was one of those stories where she wasn't even sure about her husband. But it's wild because even her own family tried to manipulate her and take advantage of her amnesia. I'm like, that's crazy, yo. Bottom line, check out The Vow if you haven't checked it out yet. You already know what time it is.